No one saw this coming, not even the most devoted Outlander fans who believed they understood everything about Sam Heughan. For years, he had been careful, composed, and almost impossible to catch off guard in interviews. But this time, something changed. In a moment that felt unplanned, unscripted, and unusually honest, he revealed something that instantly made fans question everything they thought they knew. It happened during what seemed like a routine conversation, the kind where answers are usually polished and predictable. Sam had always been known for handling questions with charm and precision, never giving away more than he intended. But when the topic shifted, subtly, almost unexpectedly, his response carried a different tone. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, but it was real enough to make people pause and listen more carefully than ever before. For a long time, fans have built a very specific image of Sam Heughan. He was seen as the calm center of Outlander, the actor who embodied loyalty, strength, and emotional depth both on and off screen. His connection to the show felt unwavering, almost inseparable, as if he and the character he portrayed had become one in the eyes of the audience. And because of that, many assumed his feelings about the journey, the cast, and the experience were exactly what they appeared to be. But what he revealed hinted at something far more complicated. Without directly contradicting anything he had said before, he suggested that the reality behind the scenes wasn't always as simple as it looked. There were moments, he implied, where expectations didn't match reality, where the pressure of maintaining a certain image began to shape how things were presented. It wasn't a denial of the connection fans loved, it was a subtle acknowledgement that what they saw might not be the full picture. That's what made the moment so powerful. It didn't come with a headline-ready confession or a clear, shocking statement that could be easily summarized. Instead, it unfolded in a way that felt almost accidental, like a truth slipping through before it could be carefully reshaped. And once it was out there, even in that understated form, it changed the context of everything that had come before. Fans quickly began to dissect his words, replaying the clip, analyzing every phrase, every pause, every shift in tone. Some believed he was simply being honest about the realities of working in a high-pressure industry, where perception and reality don't always align. Others felt there was something deeper hidden beneath his words, something he chose not to fully explain but couldn't completely conceal either. And that uncertainty only made the moment more compelling. What added to the shock was how consistent his public image had been up until now. Sam had rarely allowed even small cracks to show, maintaining a level of control that made him one of the most respected and admired figures associated with the show. So when even a slight deviation from that pattern appeared, it stood out immediately. It wasn't just what he said, it was the fact that he said it at all. And the timing raised even more questions. Why now, after so many years of careful silence on certain topics? Why choose this moment to shift the narrative, even slightly? Some speculated that it was the natural result of reaching a point where holding everything in no longer felt necessary. Others wondered if something behind the scenes had changed, something that made it easier, or perhaps unavoidable, to speak more openly. Whatever the reason, the impact was undeniable. What had once felt certain now seemed open to interpretation. The story fans had followed so closely began to feel less fixed, less defined, as if new layers had been added without warning. And in that space of uncertainty, the fascination only grew stronger. Because in the end, it wasn't just about what Sam Heughan revealed, it was about what his words made people realize. That even after years of watching, listening, and believing, there were still parts of the story they had never truly seen. And as that realization settled in, one thing became clear: nothing about what they thought they knew felt quite as certain anymore. But what exactly did he mean, and why did it feel so different this time? That question lingered long after the moment passed, echoing through fan discussions, interviews, and every corner of the Outlander community. Because the more people revisited his words, the more they realized this wasn't just a passing comment. It felt like a quiet shift, a subtle unraveling of a narrative that had been carefully held together for years. What Sam Heughan revealed wasn't a single explosive truth, but something far more unsettling, a suggestion that the reality behind the show, the relationships, and even the emotions might not be as straightforward as fans had believed. For years, Audiences embraced a version of the story that felt complete, where everything aligned neatly between what was seen on screen and what appeared to exist off-screen. But now, that alignment felt less certain, as if the edges of that story were beginning to blur. At the center of this shift was a deeper idea, one that many fans hadn't fully considered before. The possibility that what they experienced as authenticity was, at least in part, shaped by expectation. When people invest emotionally in a story, they don't just watch it, they extend it, building connections and meanings that go beyond what is explicitly shown. And over time, those extensions can start to feel just as real as the story itself. Sam's words seemed to gently challenge that process. Not by denying the connection fans admired, but by reminding them that there is always a difference between what is performed and what is lived. That difference isn't always obvious, especially when the performances are as powerful as they are in Outlander. But it exists, quietly influencing how moments are created, presented, and ultimately perceived. This is where the tension truly begins to grow, because once that distinction is acknowledged, it becomes impossible to ignore. Fans started to question whether certain moments they had cherished were exactly what they seemed, or whether they had been interpreted through a lens shaped by hope and expectation. It wasn't about proving anything wrong, it was about realizing that the truth might be more layered than anyone initially thought. And that realization sparked a wave of reactions that spread quickly and intensely. Some fans embraced the honesty, seeing it as a refreshing and necessary perspective that added depth to their understanding of the show and the people behind it. Others struggled with it, feeling as though something they had believed in was being quietly redefined. Because when a narrative you've held onto for years begins to shift, even slightly, it can feel more unsettling than any dramatic revelation. What made the situation even more complex was that Sam never fully explained himself. He didn't follow up with a detailed clarification or a definitive statement that could settle the conversation once and for all. Instead, he allowed the ambiguity to remain, leaving space for interpretation, discussion, and, inevitably, speculation. And in doing so, he transformed a single moment into something much larger, a conversation that continues to evolve. From a broader perspective, this moment also highlights something fundamental about fame and storytelling. Public figures are often expected to exist in ways that align with the stories people create around them. When they deviate from those expectations, even slightly, it can feel surprising, even shocking, regardless of how small the deviation actually is. And in Sam's case, that deviation wasn't loud or dramatic, it was quiet, controlled, but significant enough to change the tone of the narrative. As the conversation continues, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The real impact of what he said isn't just in the words themselves, but in the way they shifted perception. It's not about uncovering a hidden truth or exposing a secret that had been carefully guarded. It's about recognizing that the truth was never as simple as it seemed, and that sometimes, what feels most real is also what we most want to believe. In the end, the biggest shock isn't just what Sam Heughan revealed, it's what that revelation forces people to confront. That the story they followed so closely, the connections they felt so strongly, may have always contained more complexity than they realized. And perhaps the most unexpected part of all is this: the truth didn't suddenly appear out of nowhere. It was always there, just waiting for someone to say it out loud. In the end, the biggest shock isn't just what Sam Heughan revealed, it's what that revelation forces people to confront. That the story they followed so closely, the connections they felt so strongly, may have always contained more complexity than they realized.